Alrighty. Let's see. Let me get punched in here on my phone. That way I can see everything going on. Also make sure I'm actually on and live. I'm muted. Nope, I'm not muted, so that's good. Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, you can tell the professionalness right there. Alright, so got any chat going on, if anybody's watching, whatever. I'm going to do this in a series of parts. Try and break it down. Now, the video is entitled how NHL franchise can help Madden CFM, and you'll probably notice I'm not currently in NHL. I'm in Madden. And the reason I wanted to come here first is because I want to show the sliders, which if you are savvy and notice the title, I want to show slider details, and I want to make this kind of a little short video, not too terribly long. But if you play Madden, you're familiar with the settings and the sliders. The problems we've had for years messing with these sliders is we don't know exactly how they work and operate. You know, does quarterback accuracy, if you turn it up, does it actually make the quarterback more accurate? Does it make it less accurate? Because there are some sliders, and I realize that saying that and adjusting that, you may think, well, of course, if you increase it, the quarterback should be more accurate. There are some sliders, though, that are still argued about in the community as to whether or not upping them makes it go up, or makes the occurrence of the fumble go up, or occurrence of run blocking, or whatever. There are some arguments still that, you know, increasing a slider actually decreases the chance of it happening versus actually the way it should work. It's just without going into too much detail. If you've been in the trenches and had to deal with this, you're familiar with it. But you can kind of look here and you notice that, you know, it's pretty generic. Field goal power, field goal accuracy, punt power, pound accuracy. Most of these you would think are self-explanatory, and they maybe kind of are. But I wanted to show that this is it as far as sliders. We've gone to penalties now. So basically 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 26. There are 26 sliders that can affect a wide swath of Madden's AI based on difficulty and things of that nature. So what I want to do is, I started that just to show the sliders. That was it. That's all I wanted to do with Madden, was show the sliders. So I'm going to exit out of it. Okay, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to start up NHL. Okay, and I want to go, what I'll do is I'm going to go into a franchise I've already started, so that way I don't have to go through the process of starting the franchise over again. But I'm going to introduce this by saying, these are all settings you can set up before you even launch the franchise. Okay? I state that because if you go into franchise mode in Madden, you really can't do that. You have to go into the franchise itself before you can actually tinker with those sliders and settings. You can tinker with a few sliders outside before you start and launch the franchise, but once you have to launch it to officially get in and adjust the sliders. These NHL sliders I'm going to show you, you could actually adjust before you even start your offline franchise. Now, I do realize it's offline franchise, but these are things I feel like you could implement in online franchise that would be pretty easy. And we're starting with the basics. We're starting with sliders. So I'm going to jump into franchise mode. I'm just going to hit continue because I should have a franchise ready to launch there. It's my Seattle Kraken that are currently god-awful right now. I just started it, so it's not too detailed. But what I want to do, mainly, I wanted to come in and I wanted to show off settings. And I want to go in and I want to show off gameplay sliders. And I want you to notice the radical difference between the detail of the sliders here versus the detail of the sliders in Madden. Madden was pretty generic and basic. Let's show you what you could potentially have. Now, this is starting with just the general settings, okay? And you can set it by a gameplay version. I know in Madden we always fuss or talk about as soon as they release a patch how gameplay drastically changes, and then you have to adjust sliders to match. With this version, if I wanted to play on older gameplay version settings, I could do so. Now, there are only 2 that are released out right now, But could you imagine with the amount of patches that Madden gets on a regular basis, could you imagine, hey, you know what? This last patch, version 1.13, was actually really good. We were happy with it. Then 1.14 came out, and now we're not so happy with it. I'm going to bounce back to gameplay version 1.13, and we're going to just keep right on rolling. That would be just that alone would be huge. And then you can obviously set it to the latest, so that way the latest gameplay tuner settings you have available. Attribute effects. So you can design how your attributes affect your players. So basically you can affect how the disparity between attributes will work with different players. Game speed, the speed of play and players in the game. So if you want to make it a faster game, crank it up. If you want to make it a slower game, crank it down. Fatigue effect. And the reason I'm going through each of these, and I'm not going to go into too much detail on them, but I just want you to notice not only the fact that the way the sliders are, which this is pretty much default. I think I've only tinkered with one thing, which is injury occurrence, because I don't actually play games in my franchises. I just simulate. But I want you to note not only the fact that the sliders are both for CPU and human right here, but look at the fact that we have additional information on the right. Look at the fact that we have the fact of what this slider actually does. Okay? This will adjust the effect that being tired has on player performance. Stamina. Stamina in Madden. So basically you can set to how much being tired affects your overall attributes and how they work on the field. Fatigue recovery. Recovering from being tired. Sitting on the bench for a couple plays. How quick do you get back your juice to do things? Wow, I'm hearing a trombone from next door. Sorry, that startled me for a second. That's amazing what live stream will do for you. Injury occurrence. So you can increase or decrease not only for CPU, but for humans. So you could say, okay, you know what? If you're playing CPU, I want the CPU to have a higher injury rate. But you know what? If you're a human, I don't want you to get injured as much. I don't want injuries to be that much of a factor. You can adjust it for both human and CPU teams, which is nice. Now, normally in the CFM, you hope to have 32 full teams. That's not always the case in a realistic setting, especially near the end of the cycle. So you can play around with this and make sure that injuries do have an effect on the overall performance. And by the way, this is just general. This is just general. Skating, back skating. So you can look on the right, and it tells you specifically what this will fiddle with, and it tells you which way to go to get your desired result. For example, if I wanted my players to back skate as fast as they would going forwards, I would increase this all the way to the top. It says at your highest setting, back skating is the same as your regular skating speed going forwards. If I wanted it to be a significant loss of speed going backwards versus going forward, I would go to 0. And it tells me that right there in the slider. I don't have to guess. I don't have to play with these, go into a game practice, see how it affects things, and then adjust based upon what desired effect I got. I can look right here and see exactly what I'm changing and what it changes based upon going higher or lower. And it's all right there on the side. And this is all skating. So think player movement in Madden. Player acceleration. You could tinker with CPU versus human. So in other words, if you want the CPU to not have as much of a jump on acceleration versus you can adjust that. Skating speed. You can adjust the speed of the CPU players versus you. Agility. Shooting. That's going to bug me in the background. If you hear a trombone in the background, I'm sorry. I can't help it. My next door neighbor is apparently doing trombone outside. That's wonderful. Can't help that, though. Anything can happen live, right? So shooting. So think of this as like passing and catching footballs. One-timer accuracy, shot power, slap shot accuracy, slap shot power. Passing, manual passing on, pass assist, minimum pass speed, maximum pass speed. I'm going through these kind of quick because I don't really need to detail everything. I just want you to see, based upon Madden had a total of 25 sliders. Okay? 25 sliders. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 just in general. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in skating. That's 18. We're at 18 so far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 and 18 is 28. We already have 28 sliders. We're not even halfway through the slider bar menus yet, folks. We're not even through the full slider set. And also, if you really wanted to, which I can exit out without saving. But if you really wanted to, you can tinker with this. I'll show you at the end once I go through all these. But just look, passing, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 sliders just for passing the puck. Just for passing the puck. Puck control. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 for puck control. Once you receive the puck. Goalies, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 for goalies. For checking, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I'm trying to go through them a little slow so you can kind of see the different headlines in each one. But just, here's one that would be lovely in Madden. Just kind of throwing out some ones that would be good in Madden. How about, let's just start with just checking. Because guess what? Football's all about tackling, right? Aggression, the aggressiveness of players in game. Being able to tune this to where maybe your defensive and offensive lines are a little bit more feisty than they normally are. Hitting power. Not only do you have a hitting power attribute in Madden, and you do in this game as well, but being able to adjust that to make games feel more heavy than they actually are. Oh, we ask about physics, right? Size effect. The difference in size between players actually affects how the check carries out from an animation standpoint. Yes, it's still animation driven, but they do take into account the size of players clashing. So in this game, if I have a player that's 5'8", 180 pounds soaking wet, he's not going to be able to come in and basically bulldoze a guy who's 6'5", 240 pounds. That's not going to happen. It might happen every once in a while depending on how I catch him. But more often than not, I'm going to be the guy that's going to end up with my butt on the ice. That's because size shouldn't matter. And you can adjust the rating on this. So basically, if I wanted to make even more of a difference, I would bump this slider up from 25. It's currently sitting at 25. If I wanted to be more of an impact, I'd increase that even more so the difference between the big players and the small players would actually carry out on the ice, or in Madden's case, on the field. How about how fast you're going at somebody? Because tackling kind of involves some speed too. How does speed carry into the equation versus size versus hitting power? All of that adds up to, in Madden, if you had these type of sliders, would add up to either a tackle, a missed tackle, a hard hit, maybe a fumble in there. Just these sliders alone, checking and balance rating effects. So if you're off balance, could you maybe get laid out? Could you maybe get laid out if the guy that's running at you has a good checking attribute, a good tackling attribute, if you will, and the other guy's kind of off balance? Does that affect it? Here, yes it does, because 83 is pretty high, and that basically means that checking in the balance, those ratings and how they're positioned on the ice, takes into account for the check and the result of the check. So that all of this alone would make tackling a much more robust system as far as just from adjusting some sliders. And this is just for checking. How many are here for just checking? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. There are as many sliders for checking in this game as there are sliders for the entirety of Madden as far as setting up all the players. Just in checking. Could you imagine if Madden had 25 sliders for tackling? How much more realistic the game would probably play out? I don't know. We haven't seen it ever. Penalties. You can adjust penalties just like you can in Madden, and every penalty that's available in the NHL is called here. And my favorite part is coming up next. This is my favorite part. Not the trombone playing in the background if you hear it, but the AI. Okay? This is something I love. And I understand this won't affect every CFM because there will be some CFMs with 32 full owners. I get that. But if you have to play those CPU games, especially near the end of a cycle, having the AI be able to learn your tendencies and adjust its play calling based on that is so invaluable. Clearly, you see I've got it set for 6. out of 6. That basically means as soon as they catch on to me doing something, they're adjusting and covering it appropriately. If I make my living as a left winger, every time I get the puck, I go to the left side of the ice and I basically hug it and I try to basically cut across the goalie's front and try and get a backhand or a forehand shot. After about the second or third time I do that, it's going to go, okay, fine, we're going to double team you, we're going to box you in, and you're going to have to go through 2 players to get what you want to get done. That's realistic. That's realistic. If a coach sees that something's going on, if they have the means to stop it as far as the talent, they're going to throw everything they can to stop it. CPU difficulty adjustment. Yes, you do have default difficulty levels, but if you're playing on, say, All Pro in Madden, obviously, I'm kind of talking Madden here. If you're playing an All Pro Madden, and All Pro's too easy, but All Madden is too tough, you can basically say, okay, let's do All Pro, ratchet it up a little bit. Let's make it a little bit more difficult All Pro. And this kind of affects the back-end equation of all those sliders you've seen so far. Okay? Face-off difficulty. Obviously, this one's not really transitional in Madden. Fight difficulty, definitely not appropriate in Madden. CPU strategy adjustments, though. This would be something that would be nice in Madden. Okay? If you're playing against the CPU, do they adjust what they are doing based upon what you're doing or based upon the game itself? If a team is down 21, is the CPU just going to try and run on first down, run on second down, run on third down, and punt? Or are they actually going to try and air it out? Even if they're not an aired out team, they have to adjust to basically try and come back in the game. That's what this slider does. And you can adjust it and basically say, you know what, CPU, you don't change your ways at all. You basically just take whatever happens. Or you can say, you know what, I want you to change as aggressively as possible. If you see something, if you see a gameplay element that you need to exploit, go after it. And I don't mean exploit in a negative way. I mean, look, if this inside run is working, we're going to keep going to it until they stop it. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. And you can do the same thing with users. Now, users, it would be a little bit less obvious because in most CFMs you're calling your own plays and things of that nature. But this is still something nice from a standpoint of if you go coach only, which I know there are some leagues that do that, and they're rare, but they do that. So you could have this to where the coaching adjustments based upon, you know, what's going on in the game. How often do you change out your wide receivers, your halfbacks? What type of personnel do you send out there? What type of plays would the play caller recommend in the situation? I know there are some leagues that don't allow you to have recommended play calls, but for those that do, this would be where that user strategy adjustment would affect it. So maybe if you're down 7 or 10 and it's late in the game, the automatic play call would throw out more passes, more deep passes, more intermediate passes, maybe stuff that goes to the sidelines to get out of bounds to stop the clock, things of that nature. So that would be something nice to add to the mix. It wouldn't be for every league, but that's something you could add in. And by the way, that's 6 sliders just on that. And the last thing I'm going to talk about on sliders, and then this stream is going to end, and I'm going to go to a next stream here shortly, is this is a custom setup. If you want to make it to where the scar changes, if you want to make it to where it's arcadey, okay, you can do that. And by the way, just kind of look at this screen and be aware that every single slider setup is changing also. So if you want to go see how they're adjusting, I'll go kind of slow. So arcade, okay, game speed, this didn't change too much, okay. But as we start to get towards full sim, you start to see some of these numbers adjust and change out a little bit. And then we go full sim, boom. By the way, these with some modified settings are what I play on. You can see the injury is at 50. Injuries are hugely a problem in this game, so I turn it down a good bit. But that's the only rating I actually typically fiddle with. Otherwise, every slider you've seen in this stream is full sim, full simulation. So this is basically the EA NHL team's interpretation of what a simulation environment should be like for the NHL. I wanted to show that off because, as you can see, just in the checking alone, it's a super detailed category that I think all these types of sliders and the details that are on the sliders, not only in the what all you can adjust, but in telling you specifically what adjusting this attribute will do. I think that's huge, especially for people new to the game coming in, to know, yes, it does say like quarterback accuracy, but what does that actually mean? Well, with puck carrier agility, I can see what it means, okay? Basically, if I'm running with the puck, or if I'm skating with the puck, I should say, how much agility do I have while holding the puck? In real life, I'm not going to be as agile with the puck as I am without it, because I'm having to focus on keeping the puck on my stick. I'm having to worry about people that might be trying to get me, because as having the puck, I tend to be a target, just like you are in football. If you have the football, you're a target. Okay, so being able to know exactly what these attributes can do, or what these sliders can do, what they'll do if you tinker with them one way or the other, and the amount of sliders, giving us the ability to fully customize our experience in CFM would be huge. And sometimes customizing starts with fundamentals, and the fundamentals for any game like this is your slider set. Okay, so having the ability to this level of detail as far as adjusting sliders in Madden would be huge for any type of CFM, regardless if you're an arcade type guy and don't really care about, simulation, or if you're a simhead like myself that basically wants it to play out almost exactly like it is on Sundays. So just want to show this off. This is going to be the first video in a series of videos to kind of break down the difference between NHL and Madden's franchises, and how some concepts from NHL can help out the Madden series if they would be willing to pull those over. Thanks for checking it out. Thanks for checking out the video. If you got any thoughts or extra